From predicting the biggest payday for Nate Diaz to warning the MMA star for one of the toughest fights of his career, Daniel Cormier has given his take on the upcoming Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz fight. Here's what the former mixed martial artist said ahead of the exhibition match.
You know how much I love the news, right? And today we got hit with a ton of news on two big fights that are going to be happening very soon. Here's one thing. One of the fights we expected to be pretty much a done deal.
Just when the combat sports world was done sorting out Israel Adesanya's victory over Alex Pereira, Paul versus Diaz got announced, and it took the internet by storm. I mean, fans were expecting the younger Paul brother to activate his rematch clause with Tommy Fury, but Paul's plans were definitely a little different. Just when the fight was announced, the MMA world was quick to share a range of reactions, and former mixed martial artist Daniel Cormier was one of them. The two-division UFC champion took to his YouTube channel and said, "Now, I believe this will be the biggest payday of Nate Diaz's career, and I know Nate has made a lot of money in the UFC. It's very likely that this prediction will come true, because Nate Diaz and Jake Paul both have huge fan followings around the world who are gonna tune in to watch. And come on, the UFC world may have mixed opinions about it, but you and I both know they're gonna watch it too." Nate has headlined two of the biggest pay-per-view fights in UFC history. These were both his fights with Conor McGregor at UFC 196 and UFC 202. But the upcoming match with the YouTuber turned boxer could break his previous records. And it's not like Diaz's $8 million net worth really needs a boost, but it's for sure about to get one. Cormier also pointed out that even though Nate is going to take big bucks home, things aren't going to be all sunshine and rainbows for him. According to him, Jake's major size advantage can make things go sour for Diaz. I know we're talking about the Nate Diaz here. He was the first man to win against Conor McGregor, so surely he won't lose to an internet personality, right? Well, I wouldn't be so sure, because things are different when boxing gloves are involved. Cormier mentioned all the difficulties Diaz is gonna face in the ring, with Paul's size advantage being a major one. Plus, the content creator has had a lot of experience in boxing in the past few years. He's fought Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren, and Isan Gibb. While none of them were real boxers, he did fight with Tommy Fury, who's a pro, and Jake lost. Nate Diaz isn't a pro boxer, so Jake's got a good chance here. The Stockton native is gonna make his boxing debut, so it'll be his first time in the ring with a pair of boxing gloves. Daniel said that Nate can obviously pull an upset, but if you gotta predict who's gonna win, of course it's gonna be the bigger, younger, and fresher guy. And in this case, it's Jake Paul. The YouTuber has got a good success rate at fighting MMA stars. Nate, on the other hand, is a guy that gets hit. Cormier pointed out that Nate's been hit by Masvidal, he's been hit by Tony Ferguson, and will most likely be hit by Jake. Jake's got the upper hand in this fight, and trust me, he really needs it. Our man's got a lot at stake here. Jake really needs to get his hand raised in Dallas on August 5th. And if you're wondering why it's such a big deal for him, let me make it clear. Jake's career in boxing started out pretty well. He was winning fight after fight and knocking MMA stars down. That's when the critics started calling him out for not fighting real boxers. So he decided to show him he could beat pros too, and set up a fight with Tommy Fury. The Bizarre star went to extreme lengths at trash-talking his opponent and called him a trash fighter. Flash forward to their fight, Jake lost to the boxer he called trash. This took away his undefeated title, and the whole world was shocked. Let's be honest here, we all thought Jake had it, but he lost. And that didn't only ruin his record, but he had a whole reputation to save. Jake Jake spent the past few months talking about how he wanted a rematch with the Love Island star and then decided to fight Diaz instead. I think he's doing it to secure some wins before he steps into a ring with Fury again. But imagine he loses this fight too. That's 2 losses in a row, and we'll give critics so much to talk about. And people aren't going to be interested in fighting Paul if he keeps losing. He's gonna lose all the hype. So Jake really needs it because there's a lot at stake here. And he isn't the only one because his opponent's in the same boat. Nate Diaz is also risking everything in this upcoming bout. Hear me out on this one. Nate Diaz is a pro MMA star in the UFC. He's built a legacy for himself with wins against Conor McGregor and Tony Ferguson. He was never even that interested in influencer boxing, but agreed on a fight with Paul just to prove a point. The 37-year-old athlete has bigger plans for himself. He wants to return to the UFC and make a run for the championship belts. Imagine that he loses to a YouTuber. Yeah, that ain't gonna be too good, because who would want to fight someone who lost to a Disney star? And imagine all the crazy headlines we'll get to see. Nate Diaz won against Conor McGregor, but lost to a content creator. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty bad. And since Paul is a betting favorite, I'm concerned for Diaz. People don't think this is a good matchup, and the UFC world is calling it a clown show. There's a mixed bag of opinions here. Ben Askren thinks it's a good fight and feels for all the Nate fans who are gonna cry when he loses. Kelvin Gastelum will also tune in because it's Diaz fighting, and who wants to miss out on that? But the majority here isn't too hyped for it. Sean Strickland Twitter, Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz, such a joke. He said that he isn't against the fighters for making money off this clown show, but it's the fact that a retired 155er is going against a juiced TikToker at 185 who lost to a recreational boxer. I mean, in all fairness, that really isn't the recipe for a good fight. Dylan Dennis also called out Paul for returning to retired fighters after losing to the only pro boxer he has ever fought. Fans think that Nate should have gone for Logan Paul instead, since he has beef with him too. I mean, that would have been an easy win for Diaz, but our man wanted to go big. We'll just have to wait and see how it goes for him. And people can call it a clown show, but the fight's set in stone. Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz will take place on August 5th. The fight will take place at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas. And if you're not in the mood for a trip to Texas, then get your DAZN subscription ready. Both fighters are gonna put their gloves to work in the ring. Jake's got the bigger body, and Nate's got the stamina. Both have their eyes glued on the prize, and we know how much they need it. It's gonna be worse for Diaz if he loses as compared to if Jake does. So the California native needs to take Cormier's warning seriously and come prepared. That's all for Daniel Cormier's warning for Nate Diaz ahead of the Jake Paul fight.